Hi everyone, welcome to Val Fashion's YouTube channel. My name is Eunice. Today we'll be learning how to make a basic bodice block, our full scale basic bodice block. This is going to be for a blouse. So to begin this tutorial, these are the required measurements I need. The shoulder measurement, this is 16 inches. The bust measurement, 38 inches. The waist measurement, 30 inches. The underbust, 30 inches. The hip is 42. The shoulder to nipple is 10.5. The shoulder to underbust is 13.5. And the half length, the front half length is 17.5, while the back half length is 15.5. The length of this blouse, or the length of this basic bodice block, is 24 inches. Front length is 20, that's the length of the blouse, is 24 inches front length, and then the back length is 22 inches. Now the difference between this half length, that's the difference between the front length and the back length, is 2 inches, and the cause of this difference is the bust. We have our bust in front and we don't have our bust at the back. So as a result of having the bust in front, that is why we have this difference of 2 inches. So to begin this tutorial, I'll be starting with drawing my shoulder line. So here is my shoulder line. I'll be drafting for my front first. On this shoulder line, I'll come down to mark the front length. The front length I'm working with is 24 inches. So here's my 24 inches. At this point, that's the full length of the paper, my pattern paper. On this shoulder line, I'm going to mark the shoulder measurement. The shoulder measurement I'm working with is 16 inches. 16 divided by 2 is 8 inches. And then on the shoulder line, I'll come down by 1 inch here to create my shoulder slant. Our shoulders are not straight. I'll mark 3 inches here, which is going to be for the neck width. And then I'll connect it to the shoulder slant. I've created my front shoulder slant. Then I'll come down to mark my vertical measurement. The bust point is 10.5. I'll come here to mark it also. This is to help me achieve a straight line. The underbust is 13.5. I'll mark also. The half length is 17.5. That's the half length is also referred to as the waistline. 17.5. And then the full length is 24 inches, which is the end of my pattern paper here. So I'm going to draw out my lines. I'll connect my dots to have straight lines. This is my bust line I'm drawing. This is the underbust line. And then this is the waistline, which is the half length also. And then this is the full length. This length I'm working with is not from shoulder to hip. It's not from shoulder to the fullest part of your hip. It's that to the upper part of your hip, because this is a blouse. It's not going to go all the way down to your hip line. So this is just the upper part of the hip. So the hip measurement I'm using here is the upper part of the hip. That is not the fullest part. For this hip measurement, I said 42. The fullest part of this hip measurement, the fullest part of this person's hip measurement is 44. So that upper part is 42 inches. So this is the upper part of the hip, not the fullest part of the hip. So now that I have my bust line, I'll come here to get my shoulder armhole line. To get my actual armhole line, I'm going to divide the bust measurement I have by 6 inches plus 1 and by 6 plus 1.5. So the bust measurement I have is 38 inches. When I divide it by 6 plus 1.5, I'll have 7.8. So you can go ahead and approximate it to 8 inches, or you use your 7.8, depending on how tight fitting you want it to be. So here is my 7.8. I'll come here and bring down my shoulder measurement, which is 8 inches. This is to help me achieve a straight line. so that I don't just draw my line and then it is slanted. So this is where my 8 inches stops. I'm marking it down to my 7.8. So now that I have this, I just bring out this line this way. This is my armhole line, which is also referred to as the chest line. So I can just draw it out this way. So this is my chest line, CL, BL, bust line, UBL, and then waistline, then hip line here at the end. Okay. So here at the armhole area, I'm going to get the midpoint of my armhole by folding my tape into 2 or by dividing 7.8 by 2. But this is easier. Just fold your tape into 2 here and mark the center. This is my front pattern I'm drafting. I have my shoulder measurement here. Here, the midpoint of the armhole, that's around the chest area, the midpoint is not the same thing as the measurement you have on your shoulder. It's a bit inward. So I'll be going in by 3/4 of an inch for the front. So this 3/4 of an inch means that when I took the person's measurement, that's across chest, when I took the measurement, I had 14.5, which is a difference of 1.5. Since the shoulder here I'm working with is 16 inches, so the difference is 1.5. 1.5 divided by 2, that's what has given me 3/4 of an inch. Some people's own can be 1 inch. So if it is 1 inch, 1 inch divided by 2, that means you're going to be taking in 1/2 inch here. So here what I have is 1.5, so I'm working with 3/4 of an inch. Because this pattern, of course, this is paper, so this is on fold. This is on fold. That is why I've divided my shoulder measurement by 2. This is on fold, so I'm going to have the right side and the left side by the time I'm placing to draft on my fabric. So I have this, so I'll connect it this way back to the shoulder line and stop. Okay, so on this chest line, I'll be bringing down my bust measurement. The bust measurement I'm working with is 38 inches. When I divide it by 4, I have 9.5. So this is 9.5. So this is where my armhole, I'll be connecting my armhole to. So in order not to go, just place your armhole unnecessarily too deep, you come here and go up by 1 inch at this point. Go up by 1 inch diagonally. So I'm just going to connect this 1 inch here. Okay, so this is my armhole line. So now on the waistline or on the bust line, whichever way you want, wherever you want to start, I'll come here. The nipple to nipple measurement I'm working with, that means the distance from one bust to the other. The distance is 8 inches. That means when I divide it by 2, I'll be having 4 inches. So I'm going to mark this 4 inches here on this line. 4 inches on this line. I'm not adding any sewing allowance to this pattern. I'm not adding any sewing allowance to this pattern. My sewing allowance will be added to my fabric. So I'm just using the actual measurement. So I'll connect these points like so to achieve a straight line, my 4 inches. So here. So on the waistline, that's where I'll be doing my dart intake. I'll be taking in 1/2 inch on both sides for my dart. You can do 3/4. Sometimes you can do 1 inch, because this pattern is what you can use. This pattern is the foundation of every dress you see. You can use it to achieve your bustiers. You can use it to achieve your corset. So if you want that tight fitting, if you want it to be really fitted, you can use 3/4 or you can use 1 inch. So here let me use 3/4 of an inch. So I'm using 3/4 inch on both sides, which is 1.5. So I'll be connecting it here to the bust line. If you're working with somebody that is on the small size, you can just go ahead and use your half inch, which will be 1 inch when you are done. Okay, so I'll go ahead to enter my bust measurement. The bust measurement is 38 divided by 4, that's 9.5. So here is my 9.5. I'll come to the waistline. The waist measurement is 30 inches divided by 4, that's 7, plus this 1.5 that I took for that. So I'll place it back here on this at this point. And the hip measurement, the upper hip measurement is 42 inches divided by 4, that's 10.5. So I'll be connecting my lines like so. I'm connecting to the waistline and then to the bust line. So remember I said that the front and the back lengths are not the same. So I'll come here, that 2 inches, which is our difference, I'll be placing it under the bust. 2 inches, I'll be placing it after the bust line. Here is my bust dart. 2 inches, which is the difference between the front and the back. Some people may be 1 inch, some may be 3 inches, but 2 inches on the average works for almost everybody. Sometimes when the difference, depending on how busty the person is, if the difference is up to like 3-4 inches, if you have to take away all that 4 inches, you may notice that the back will look really, it will not really look. So 2 inches on the average works for almost everyone. So on this line, I'll just come out here by ½ inch on the bust line like so. I'll just come out here by ½ inch. We'll understand this when I'm closing the dart. When I'm closing the bust dart, because the front is longer by 2 inches. Of course, if the back is shorter by 2 inches, they all have to be equal at the side by the time we're done. So we'll be closing this dart later on. So for my neckline, I'm working with a neckline of 3 inches. This neckline, when you divide your bust measurement by 12, you will just get the neckline, the actual measurement that will sit on the collarbone. So this is a neckline that is subject to adoption to any kind of neckline you want to achieve. So I'm just working with this since I'm just drafting my basic pattern. Okay, so that's that for my front. So I'll cut out my front pattern. I'm done with this already. I'll cut out my front pattern before we go ahead and draft our back pattern. So I'll be going out at this point like so. Okay, so I'll keep aside my front pattern. So to draft my back pattern, this is what I'll go ahead to do. The same thing I did for the front. I'll mark my shoulder line, which is my starting line for all my measurements. So here's my shoulder line. On that shoulder line, I'll enter my shoulder measurement, which is 16 divided by 2, 8 inches. I'll also come down by 1 inch to create my shoulder slant. I'll mark my 3 inches here, just like I did for the front, and connect my shoulder slant. I'll come down to mark the full length of, I'll be marking my full length, the full front length. The front length I worked with, the front length I worked with was 24 inches. The back length is 22 inches. So here is my 22 inch. So from shoulder to chest line. Now for the back, we don't need the bust point because we do not have a bust in front. So I'm going to be coming down to mark my armhole line, which is the chest line. The chest line I worked with in front was 7.8. So I'll bring down my shoulder measurement here. Here's my shoulder measurement, and then connect this line. So here is my chest line. So from shoulder to waist for the front, you remember that the front was 17.5. From shoulder to waist for the back is 15.5, the difference of 2 inches. So here is my waistline at the back, 15.5, and then while the full length is 22 inches. So I'm just going to mark out my dots so that I can connect and have a straight line. So here is my 15.5, and then here's my 22. So just mark out my lines like so. Here's the full length, which is the upper hip line of the back. Okay, so now I'll get the midpoint of my armhole just like I did for the front. The same thing I did in front, I'll fold it into 2 to get the midpoint. So for this back, I'll be going in by 1/2 inch. Here is my 1/2 inch. The front, I went in by 3/4 inch because the front is narrower than the back. The back is 1/2 inch. So I'll connect back this 1/2 inch to the shoulder slant. Then I'll come to the chest line and enter the bust measurement. The bust measurement I'm working with is 9.5. So here is 9.5. So here is my 9.5. Then I'll still place my tape diagonally like so and mark 1 inch in order to connect my curves. So I'll place it this way. So this is my armhole for the back. So I'll come to the waist and mark my dart. The same thing I did in front. The dart is 4 inches. I'll mark 4 inches at this point, 4 inches on the hip line, 4 inches on the chest line also. I'll connect the dots. So here on the waistline, the same thing I did for the front, like I took 3/4 inch on both sides. This is a plus size. I want it to be, I want to adapt this to a corset dress, so I need it to be really fitted. Like I said, if you are working for a smaller size, you can use 1/2 inch on both sides. So it depends on how fitted you want the dress to be. So here I'm going to be marking my 3/4 inch. You can do 1/2 inch. And then I'll connect it to this point. So I'm zeroizing at the hip point, and then here also I'll zeroize at the chest line. Okay, so here we are. So now I'm going to enter the waist measurement. The waist measurement is 7.5. That's 30 divided by 4. So plus the dart intake here of 1.5. So I'll come back here and replace my 1.5. The hip measurement is 10.5. That's 42 divided by 4. So I'll connect my lines like so. So this is it for my back pattern. So I'll come to the neckline. I'll mark the same neck width as I used for the front, which is 3 inches. I'll come down by 1 inch. I'm using a higher neckline for the back, which is also subject to adoption. This is just my basic pattern. Okay, so now at this point there's something I need to explain. At this point, which is the center back, we have to take out, there's this difference you have to take out. I know that you must have seen some dresses because of our spinal cord, let me first of all explain the reason. Because of our spinal cord is a bit inwards. So if you do not remove this, if you do not alter this measurement around here, you'll notice that if it is a dress that is supposed to have a zipper, you notice that the zipper area will be folding. But if this dress will not have any zipper, you don't have to bother about this. But if you want that tight fitting there, whether there is zipper or not, depending on what you want, because some dresses have their zippers in front. But if the dress is just going to be a free dress without zipper, nothing, then don't bother removing anything from here. But if you're going to be working with a zipper, you need to alter this part. You need to remove 1/2 inch from here to eliminate that bulge around there. So here I'll be going in by 1/2 inch. I've not added any sewing allowance to this pattern. So I went in by 1/2 inch, and then I'm connecting it here like so. And then I'm bringing it, I'm not going to take it all the way to the hip line. I'm going to be going 2 inches away from the hip line. So this is what we have. Like I earlier explained, that this dart that is running all the way to this place, it is because this is the upper part of your hip. If you are drafting a pattern that will go all the way to the hip, I'll still show us as I keep making videos, I'll still show us how the dart will stop. Let's say now you are working with a gown block and you want it to go all the way to the hip. Your dart will stop at 22 inches, which is like 2 inches away from your actual hip line. But because this is the upper part of my hip, so it's going to be stopping around here. So this is not the actual hip line of the person. So if this is your full length, for instance, that's this whole of this 24, your dart will stop here, meaning that this dart will not run all the way to this point. So now that I have 24 in front, it means that the front hip line is 26. So that's 2 inches away from the hip line. That was why I explained that this part of the hip I'm working with is the upper hip line. Is the upper hip line. That's not the fullest part of your hip. So right now, to be able to make this pattern match up, you see, I'll have to close this dart. By the time I close this buzz dart, you see, I'll have my patterns matching up. Can you see that they are now equal? Because I'm going to be joining the two sides together. So it is this buzz dart that is our difference. If you take a look at it, you see from the chest line to the hip line, they are all equal at the side. But of course, this will be longer, which will still balance very well. Once you take out this dart, you'll notice that your pattern will sit properly. Right now, when I open it, you see my difference has shown up back. So that is that for our basic bodice block. I'll go ahead and cut out my back pattern. Okay, so that is it. So I'm going to be leaving this point because I'm not cutting it out yet, because I'm just going to leave it as my basic pattern. But like I said, it is only when you want to add a zipper to this dress. So if you're just drafting a basic pattern, you can leave it this way. But if you're going to add a zipper, you now cut out this part and then add your zip allowance. So this will make your zip allowance come in. It's not going to be a straight zip allowance. It's going to be curved to follow this shape also. So that's that for our basic pattern. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. If this video was helpful, please like, comment, share. Thank you. See you in my next one.